the Quit Vaping and Nicotine Addiction Solution. The Nicotine Addiction and Withdrawal Recovery Plan to Stop Smoking, Break Bad Habits, and Finally Live Smoke-Free by Scott Ellerby. Introduction. On a cold Saturday morning in January 1964, a man named Dr. Luther Terry walked into a room filled with reporters. He looked tired. He was the Surgeon General of the United States, which meant he was the country's top doctor. He wasn't a man who liked the spotlight. He didn't want to be a hero or a famous face on the news. He was just a doctor who had been handed a mountain of data he couldn't ignore. The doors to the room were locked. This wasn't a normal meeting. Dr. Terry had chosen a Saturday because he didn't want the news he was about to give to crash the stock market. For decades, tobacco companies had been some of the most powerful businesses in the world. Almost everyone smoked. It was in the movies, in the offices, and at the dinner table. It was seen as a sign of being grown up, cool, and relaxed. Dr. Terry stood behind the microphone and cleared his throat. He held a 387-page report. This book was the result of years of study. For the first time, the government was going to say out loud what many doctors already feared: smoking was killing people. He told the reporters that cigarettes were a major cause of lung cancer and heart disease. He used words like remedial action. But what he was really saying was that the product millions of people loved was a slow-motion disaster. Dr. Terry wasn't a crusader by choice. He actually smoked cigarettes himself. He was part of the very group he was warning. He knew how hard it would be to tell the world that their favorite habit was a trap. He knew that the companies making the sticks would fight him with every dollar they had. But he also knew he couldn't stay silent anymore. That day, the first real battle for your lungs began: the modern trap. Fast forward to today. The world looks very different than it did in 1964. You don't see people smoking on airplanes or in hospitals anymore. But if you look closely, the trap hasn't gone away. It just changed its shape. Instead of paper and leaves, the trap is now made of high-tech metal, glowing lights, and USB chargers. It's sleek. It's clean. It smells like mango or mint instead of burnt wood. It's marketed as a way to be free, a way to relax, or a way to stay focused. But if you are reading this, you probably know the truth. The tech version of nicotine is just the same old machine in a new suit. In many ways, it's even more powerful. It's designed to be used anywhere and everywhere. It doesn't leave a smell on your clothes, so you can use it in secret. It doesn't have a natural endpoint like a cigarette does, so you can puff on it all day long. What started as a way to quit smoking has turned into a new kind of prison. You might feel like you can't leave the house without checking your pockets for it. You might feel a spike of panic when the battery light turns red. You might find yourself hiding in bathroom stalls or stepping away from your family just to get a hit of vapor. This is what we call the invisible leash. The software hack most people think that if they can't quit, it's because they are weak. They think they lack willpower. They feel a sense of shame every time they take a puff after promising themselves they would stop. But here is the reality: your brain has been hacked. Nicotine is like a piece of bad software that has been installed in your head. It goes straight to the part of your brain that handles survival. This part of the brain is supposed to reward you for things like eating food, drinking water, or being around people you love. When you do those things, your brain releases a chemical called dopamine. It's a good job signal. Nicotine tricks your brain into thinking the vapor is just as important as food or water. Over time, the brain stops sending those good job signals for normal things. It starts to save them only for the nicotine. This is why you might feel flat or bored when you aren't vaping. Your brain is waiting for the hack to start the engine. This book isn't about judging you. It's about helping you uninstall that bad software. It's about showing you that the relief you feel when you vape isn't actually making you feel better. It's just stopping the pain that the last puff created. You are living in a cycle of creating a fire just so you can feel the relief of putting it out. The promise of freedom: by the time you finish this book, you will see the device in your pocket for what it really is. You won't look at it as a friend that helps you through a long day. You will see it as a thief that steals your time, your money, and your breath. The goal isn't just to make you a quitter. Nobody likes that word. A quitter sounds like someone who gave up on something good. Instead, the goal is to make you a non-user. A non-user is someone who doesn't need to think about vaping at all. They don't wake up wondering where their device is. They don't feel nervous during a long movie or a flight. They have their full energy back. They have what we call full lung capacity. They have paid off their oxygen debt. This book will give you a clear plan. We are going to look at the first 72 hours, which is when the physical stuff is the loudest. Then, we are going to look at the next 14 days, which is when the brain starts to rewire itself. Finally, we will look at how to live the rest of your life without ever feeling like you're missing out. You will learn how to handle stress without a crutch. You will learn how to be creative without a buzz. You will learn how to be yourself again. Meet Marcus to understand how this looks in the real world. Let's look at Marcus Thorne. Marcus is 34 years old. He lives in Chicago and works as a junior art director at a big advertising agency. His job is high pressure. He has to come up with big ideas every day, and he has clients who are never satisfied. To the outside world, Marcus has it all figured out. He's engaged to a woman named Sarah, and they are planning a beautiful wedding for the fall, but Marcus has a secret. 3 years ago, Marcus started vaping to quit smoking. He thought it would be a temporary bridge, but the bridge turned into a permanent home. Now, Marcus is ghost vaping all day long. He takes tiny puffs under his desk when his boss isn't looking. He spends more time in the 14th floor bathroom than anyone else in the office. The worst part is Sarah. Marcus told her he quit a year ago. He knows she hates it. She thinks he's healthy and clean. But every night, when she goes to bed, Marcus sneaks out to the balcony in the cold Chicago air. He stands there at midnight, shivering, feeling like a teenager hiding from his parents. He feels a deep sense of shame. He's a successful professional, yet he is controlled by a little piece of plastic and metal. He's terrified that Sarah will smell the faint scent of blueberry ice on his breath or find a spare pod in his gym bag. Marcus feels the invisible leash tightening every single day. He feels like he can't be creative without the nicotine. He thinks the stress of the wedding will break him if he tries to stop. He is the functional addict who feels physically tired and mentally trapped. Marcus is the reason this book exists. His struggle is the same struggle millions of people are facing right now. Over the next few chapters, we are going to follow Marcus as he tries to break the leash. We will see him hit the fog of the first week, and we will see him face the ultimate test at his own bachelor party. Why this works, you might have tried to quit before. Maybe you tried cold turkey and ended up snapping at your friends or family. Maybe you tried patches or gum, but they just felt like a different version of the same thing. This approach is different because it uses the space between things. We are going to use the wisdom of people who studied the human mind in the hardest conditions imaginable. We will look at how the brain learns habits and, more importantly, how it forgets them. We won't use scare tactics. You already know that vaping is bad for your lungs. You already know it's expensive. Knowing those things usually isn't enough to make someone stop. If it were, nobody would ever start. Instead, we are going to look at the why. We are going to pull back the curtain on the industry that designed your device to be as addictive as possible. Once you see the tricks they used, the magic disappears. When the magic disappears, the craving loses its power over you. The roadmap ahead here is the path we are going to take together. The history of the hit. We'll see how a man named James Bonsack changed the world in 1880 with a machine that could roll cigarettes faster than any human. We'll see how that led directly to the device you hold today. The modern war. We'll look at how Silicon Valley tech-washed nicotine to make it look cool again and how that changed the way your brain reacts to it. Rewiring the circuit. We'll use the work of B.F. Skinner to understand why your vape is like a slot machine for your brain and how to stop playing the game. The 72-hour peak. We will give you a step-by-step guide to getting the nicotine out of your blood. This is the physical detox, and it's shorter than you think. The fog and the finish. We'll look at brain fog and how to find your focus again. We will use the teachings of Viktor Frankl to help you find meaning in the struggle so that the struggle becomes easy. The identity shift. We will help you move from trying to quit to being a non-user. This is the most important part of the journey. Social survival. We'll give you the scripts and tools to handle friends who still vape and the high-stress moments that used to send you running for a puff. You are not just stopping a bad habit. You are reclaiming your autonomy. You are taking back the minutes of your day that you used to spend searching for a charger or a lost device. You are choosing to breathe clean air. Marcus is standing in that bathroom stall right now, looking at his reflection and feeling like he's had enough. If you feel the same way, then you are in the right place. The leash is strong, but it is not unbreakable. The first step is simply to understand that you have been tricked, not that you are weak. The second step is to decide that you want your breath back. The door to the prison is actually unlocked. You just have to be willing to walk through it. It's time to pay back the oxygen debt and snap the invisible leash for good. Let's begin. Chapter 1: Why do we crave the poison? The clock on the microwave says 2:14 a.m. The rest of the apartment is silent, but Marcus Thorne is wide awake, kneeling on the floor of his kitchen. He isn't looking for a midnight snack. He is breathing hard, his hands shaking slightly as he digs through a junk drawer filled with old batteries, tangled charging cords, and takeout menus. His heart is thumping against his ribs. It feels like a small, trapped bird trying to get out. He is looking for a specific cord, the one that fits the sleek metallic vape pen sitting on the counter. The battery died 20 minutes ago, and the panic that followed was fast and mean. It felt like an invisible leash had suddenly tightened around his neck, pulling him out of bed and into the kitchen. Marcus finds a cord, plugs it in, and waits. He watches the tiny LED light on the device flicker to life. He feels a wave of shame wash over him. He is 34 years old. He is a professional. He is supposed to be in control. Yet here he is, acting like a thief in his own home, terrified that his fiancée, Sarah, will wake up and see him like this. He told Sarah he quit months ago. He even made a big show of throwing his last pack of pods away. But the leash never actually snapped. He just started hiding it. He hides it in his desk at the ad agency. He hides it in the bathroom. He hides it in his pocket during dinner. He tells himself he needs it to stay sharp for client pitches, but standing in the dark kitchen, he knows that's a lie. He doesn't use the device to be creative. He uses it because he feels like he might fall apart if he doesn't. This feeling, this desperate late-night hunt, is not a mistake. It is not a sign that Marcus is weak or bad. It is exactly what the device was designed to do. To understand why Marcus is on the floor at 2 a.m., we have to go back to a time long before vapes, long before pods, and even before the modern cigarette. The machine that built the craving in 1880, the world of nicotine looked very different. If you wanted to smoke, you usually used a pipe, a cigar, or you rolled your own cigarette by hand. It was a slow process. A very fast person could roll maybe 4 or 5 cigarettes a minute. Because it took work and time, people didn't do it all day long. The leash existed, but it was long and loose. Then came a young man named James Bonsack. Bonsack was an inventor from Virginia with a mechanical mind and a big goal. There was a contest offering $75,000, a massive fortune at the time, to anyone who could build a machine that could roll cigarettes automatically. Most people thought it was impossible. Tobacco was sticky, the paper was thin, and the machines kept jamming or catching fire. Bonsack spent years obsessed with the problem. His first machine actually burned down in a warehouse fire. But he didn't stop. By 1884, he had perfected a machine that changed the world forever. His invention didn't just roll cigarettes. It created a continuous tape of tobacco, wrapped it in paper, and sliced it into perfect cylinders. His machine could produce 120,000 cigarettes in just 10 hours. To put that in perspective, one machine could do the work of 48 people. Suddenly, there was a problem that had never existed before. There were too many cigarettes and not enough people to smoke them. This is where the trap was set. To sell that many cigarettes, the industry had to create a mass-produced craving. They didn't just sell tobacco anymore, they began selling a lifestyle. They needed people to smoke more often, more quickly, and in more places. They needed to shorten the leash. James Bonsack's machine was the heart of the industry, but the fuel was the habit itself. By making cigarettes cheap, uniform, and available everywhere, the industry began to rewire how people spent their time. They weren't just selling a product. They were selling a new way of living where a hit was always within arm's reach. When Marcus looks at his vape pen today, he isn't just looking at a piece of modern technology. He is looking at the ultimate version of Bonsack's dream. The vape is the Bonsack machine, shrunk down to fit in a pocket, designed to deliver nicotine faster and more often than James Bonsack could have ever imagined. The myth of the modern choice: most people who vape believe a very specific set of stories. You might tell yourself these stories every day. Marcus certainly did. The first story is that vaping is a cleaner or safer choice. We see the sleek metal, the bright colors, and the flavors like mango or blue raz. It doesn't look like a dirty habit from the 1800s. It looks like an iPhone. We believe that because it doesn't smell like smoke, it isn't doing the same damage. The second story is that we use it for stress relief. When the day gets hard, or the boss is yelling, or the wedding planning gets overwhelming, we take a puff and feel a wave of calm. We believe the nicotine is helping us handle the stress. Both of these are myths. The truth is that the calm you feel when you vape isn't the nicotine solving your stress. It is the nicotine solving the withdrawal that the last puff created. Imagine wearing a pair of shoes that are 2 sizes too small all day long. Your feet ache and throb. At the end of the day, you take the shoes off, and the relief is incredible. You might think, wow, taking off these shoes is the best part of my day. But the shoes were the ones causing the pain in the first place. Nicotine is the tight shoe. It creates a constant, low-level anxiety in your body. When you take a hit, that anxiety goes away for a few minutes. You think the vape is your friend, helping you relax. In reality, it is just a bully that stops hitting you for a few seconds so you'll keep paying him. The tech wash design of modern vapes is the newest way to hide this reality. By making the device look like a gadget, companies have rebranded addiction. They took the modern opium war and gave it a USB port. They want you to think you are making a choice, but as Marcus found out on his kitchen floor, a choice doesn't make you panic when a battery dies. That isn't a choice, it's a tether. The science of 7 seconds. Why is the vape so much harder to put down than the cigarettes of the past? The answer lies in the 7-second rule. Your brain is the most protected organ in your body. It has a gatekeeper called the blood-brain barrier that keeps toxins out. Most things you eat or drink take a long time to affect your brain, but when you inhale a substance, it goes into your lungs, which have a massive surface area, roughly the size of a tennis court. From there, it enters the bloodstream and heads straight for the main office. Nicotine reaches your brain in about 7 seconds. That is faster than an IV drip of medicine. When it hits, it triggers a release of dopamine. You've probably heard of dopamine. It's the reward chemical. Your brain releases it when you eat a great meal, when you fall in love, or when you finish a difficult task. It tells your brain, whatever you just did, do it again. Because the hit from a vape is so fast, your brain creates a hardwired connection between the movement of your hand and the reward in your head. In the 1800s, it took minutes to get that reward. With a vape, it happens almost instantly. This creates a high-frequency loop. You can do it 50 times a day, 100 times, or 300 times. Each time you do, you're telling your brain that the vape is more important than food, more important than sleep, and more important than your own health. You are training your brain to believe that you need this toxin to survive. The salt and the sting there is another reason why modern vaping is a different beast than what came before. For a long time, nicotine was harsh. If you tried to take a massive puff of a strong cigarette, you would cough. Your body has natural alarms that tell you when you are breathing in poison. Your throat stings, your chest gets tight, and you feel sick. In 2015, the industry found a way to turn off those alarms. They began using something called nicotine salts. By adding a specific acid, benzoic acid, to the liquid, they lowered the pH level. This made the vapor smooth. It stopped the stinging in the throat. This allowed people to inhale much higher concentrations of nicotine without coughing. Think of it like this. If you try to drink a glass of pure lemon juice, your mouth will pucker and you might gag. It's too sharp. But if you add enough sugar and water, you can drink a whole gallon of lemonade without noticing the acid. The industry made nicotine lemonade. They made the poison easy to swallow. This is why people like Marcus find themselves ghost vaping all day long. Because it doesn't hurt, they don't realize how much they are taking in. They are absorbing more nicotine than 3 packs of cigarettes a day, but because it tastes like cool mint, they think it's harmless. This is the software hack. The industry used chemistry to bypass your body's natural defense systems. They silenced the alarms so they could tighten the leash without you feeling it happen. Seeing the bars of the cage back in his kitchen, Marcus finally takes a hit from the charged device. The bird in his chest stops thumping. His hand stops shaking. He feels that wave of relief. But for the first time, he doesn't just feel relieved. He feels watched. He looks down at the device. It's a small, gray rectangle. It's beautiful in a way. It's smooth and feels good in his hand. But he starts to think about James Bonsack and the 1880s. He thinks about the continuous tape of tobacco and the mass-produced craving. He realizes that he isn't the owner of this device. The device is the owner of him. He is a junior art director. His whole job is to understand how people think, how they feel, and what makes them buy things. He prides himself on being in the know. Yet, he realized he had been sold the oldest trick in the book. He had been tricked into believing that a chemical tether was actually a tool for freedom. Marcus walks back to the bedroom and sits on the edge of the bed. Sarah is still asleep, her breathing slow and steady. He looks at her and thinks about the wedding they are planning. He thinks about the oxygen debt he is carrying, how he gets winded just walking up the stairs to the office, how he always smells like a faint, chemical version of cucumber. He realizes that the invisible leash isn't just pulling him to the kitchen drawer. It is pulling him away from his life. It is pulling him away from being present with Sarah. It is pulling him away from his own health. For the first time, the myth starts to crack. He doesn't see a stress reliever on the nightstand anymore. He sees a cage. And while the bars of that cage are made of dopamine and nicotine salts, the door isn't locked. He just has to understand how the lock works. The first step of the reboot quitting isn't about willpower. If it were just about willpower, Marcus would have quit months ago. He's a hard worker. He's disciplined. But you can't out-willpower a biological hack. You have to understand the software to rewrite the code. The first step in breaking the leash is realizing that you are not the problem, you are not weak, and you are not a failure. You are a human being with a brain that is doing exactly what it was evolved to do: seek rewards and avoid pain. The nicotine industry simply found the cheat codes for your brain. They used speed, the 7-second rule, chemistry, nicotine salts, and design, the tech wash, to create a loop that is incredibly hard to break. To start the recovery, you have to stop seeing the vape as a treat or a crutch. You have to see it for what it actually is: an industrial product designed to create a customer for life. Every puff isn't a moment of relaxation. It's a payment to a company that doesn't care if your lungs are scarred or your heart is strained. Your YVS, there how as Marcus sits in the dark, he decides to do something different. He picks up a small sticky note from his bedside table. He doesn't write, "I will quit." Instead, he writes down the things the leash has taken from him. He can't sit through a whole movie without thinking about the bathroom. He feels foggy and anxious every morning until he finds the device. He is lying to the person he loves most in the world. Then, he writes down what he wants back. He wants to breathe deeply without feeling a click in his chest. He wants to be able to focus on a client pitch without a chemical timer going off in his head. He wants to be a man who doesn't hide in bathrooms. This is what Viktor Frankl, a famous psychiatrist, called the will to meaning. Frankl found that people could endure almost any physical hardship if they had a why that was strong enough. The how of quitting the jitters, the fog, the cravings is temporary, but the why is permanent. Marcus looks at the sticky note. He looks at the vape. He realizes that the invisible leash only works if you keep your head down. Once you look up and see the person holding the other end of the rope, an industry that has been refining this trap since 1880, you start to get angry. And anger is a much better fuel for quitting than shame ever was. The 21-day reset. The good news is that your brain is incredibly plastic. It can change. It can heal. When you stop using nicotine, your brain begins a process called upregulation. Right now, your brain has grown extra nicotine receptors because it's trying to handle the flood of chemicals you're giving it. That's why you need more and more to feel normal. But the moment you stop, those extra receptors start to wither away. It takes about 21 days for your dopamine levels to return to a natural baseline. 21 days of feeling a bit off in exchange for a lifetime of being on. Marcus decides that he isn't going to wait for the wedding to quit. He isn't going to wait for a less stressful time at work. He realizes there is no such thing as a perfect time to quit because the nicotine itself is what creates the stress. He stands up, takes the vape to the kitchen, and instead of plugging it in, he drops it into a tall glass of water. He watches the bubbles rise as the electronics short-circuit. The light flickers one last time and goes out. He feels a surge of fear. The leash is tight. His brain is already screaming, "What are you doing? We need that." But he also feels something else. A small, quiet spark of autonomy. For the first time in years, he isn't following the pull of the rope. He is standing his ground. He knows the next few days will be hard. He knows the brain fog is coming. He knows he will have to face his coworkers and his deadlines without his crutch. But he also knows that the crutch was actually the thing breaking his leg. Moving forward, as you read these chapters, you're going to go on the same journey as Marcus. We are going to look at the history, the biology, and the psychology of this addiction. We are going to dismantle the myths one by one until there is nothing left to hold on to. You will learn how to handle the 72-hour peak of physical detox, how to rewire your habit loops so that your car, your desk, and your morning coffee no longer trigger a craving, how to find your full lung capacity and pay back the oxygen debt. But it all starts here, with the realization that you are being hunted by an industry that has had 140 years to practice. You are not a vapor. You are a person who has been caught in a very sophisticated, very old machine. Marcus goes back to bed. He doesn't have the device. He still feels the invisible leash pulling at him, but he closes his eyes and focuses on his why. He thinks about the autumn air at his wedding. He thinks about taking a breath that goes all the way to the bottom of his lungs. He isn't a functional addict anymore. He is a person in training. And the first lesson is simple. The poison is never the solution. The poison is the problem. The leash is made of smoke and mirrors. And today, we start the work of cutting it for good. Chapter 2: The Modern Opium War. The small, silver rectangle sits on the table, catching the light from the office window. It is barely 4 inches long. It is thin, light, and made of brushed aluminum. If you found it on the floor, you would probably try to plug it into your laptop to find your lost files. It has no smell. It has no yellow stains. It has no warning labels etched into its skin. It looks like a piece of high-end jewelry or a tool for a graphic designer. This little object is the jewel. In 2015, this specific piece of metal changed the world. It didn't just change how people used nicotine, it changed how we thought about addiction itself. Before this device arrived, smoking was becoming old. It was something your uncle did in the garage. It was smelly, messy, and socially dying. Then, 2 design students from Stanford University decided to disrupt the market. They wanted to take the most addictive substance on Earth and wrap it in the skin of an iPhone. They succeeded beyond their wildest dreams. Within a few years, they hadn't just sold a product, they had started a modern opium war. The ghost of the East India Company. To understand why your pocket feels empty without your vape, you have to look back much further than 2015. You have to look at the 1830s. At that time, the British East India Company had a problem. They wanted to buy tea, silk, and porcelain from China, but the Chinese didn't want anything the British had to sell. The British were losing money fast. They decided to find something the Chinese people couldn't say no to. That thing was opium. The British flooded the Chinese market with the drug. They didn't care that it destroyed families or ruined the health of millions. They only cared about the trade balance. When the Chinese government tried to ban the drug and burned the crates of opium, the British sent warships. They fought a war to keep the right to sell addiction. The modern opium war is different because the warships are invisible. Instead of boats, the industry uses social media, sleek design, and tech speak. But the goal is exactly the same as it was in 1830, to create a customer who cannot leave. The creators of the modern vape didn't just make a better cigarette. They made a more efficient delivery system. By using something called nicotine salts, they found a way to let you inhale massive amounts of the drug without coughing. Usually, if you tried to smoke that much nicotine, your throat would burn and your body would tell you to stop. The innovation of the vape was to silence your body's natural alarms. They made the poison taste like mango. They made the delivery system look like a toy. They took the gross out of addiction so that you wouldn't notice you were being tied to a leash. The tech wash framework. The industry used a very specific strategy to get people hooked. We call this the tech wash. It is a way of hiding a dirty old habit behind a wall of clean modern technology. When you understand how the tech wash works, the cool device in your hand starts to look a lot more like a trap. The tech wash has 3 main parts: the clean design. By making the device look like a tech gadget, the companies removed the shame of smoking. You aren't a smoker, you are a user. You aren't lighting a fire, you are powering up. This design makes the habit feel sterile and safe. The new language. Notice how nobody talks about tobacco anymore. They talk about pods, juice, e-liquid, and vapor. This language is designed to trick your brain. Vapor sounds like water. It sounds like a spa or a cloud. In reality, it is a chemical aerosol, but vapor is much easier to sell to your subconscious mind. The flavor trap. This is the most dangerous part. Your brain is wired to avoid things that taste bitter or chemical. Evolution taught us that bitter things are often poisonous. By using flavors like strawberry, mint, or creme brulee, companies bypass your brain's natural defense system. Your tongue tells your brain, "This is food," while your lungs are being coated in toxins. Marcus Thorne sat in a trendy bar in downtown Chicago, watching his coworkers. It was Friday night, and the stress of the week was finally melting away. Or it was supposed to be. Marcus felt a familiar weight in his right pocket. He had promised his fiancée, Sarah, that he was done. He had even thrown his old device into a dumpster behind a gas station 3 days ago. But here, under the dim Edison bulbs of the bar, the social contagion was hitting him hard. His boss, a man who ran marathons and wore $500 shoes, pulled out a sleek black vape and took a long hit.